So welcome class 10, another class of biology, another class of genetics. So last time when I was teaching you, I told you about the monohybrid cross, where we cross two plants having two different characters, two different phenotypes for one trait. And last time I spoke about the height of the plant. Some plants were tall, some plants were dwarf, and then Mendel reached to the conclusion which we know as law of dominance. Today also, here I have a cross showing a monohybrid cross. Again, a monohybrid cross leads to the ratio, the phenotypic ratio in the F2 generation as 3:1. We will see today again, but with a different character. The character here that I have chosen today is the flower color. A pea plant usually has two flower colors, violet and white. Maximum pea plants show violet flowers, but there are few pea plants showing white flowers. They are the same species but two different phenotypes of one character. The character is flower color. So two different phenotypes, violet flower and white flower. Now Mendel chose a violet plant coming from a generation of violet plants, means its generations, its ancestors were producing only violet flowers, and here we have Mendel took a white flowering plant in which their parents, its ancestors always produced white plants. So their genotypes will be capital W and small w. These are the genotypes of the parent generation. Phenotypes are the external characters we are studying, and genotypes are the factors, combination of factors that give rise to a particular phenotype. Right? So we are using pure phenotypes. When you cross a dominant violet plant with a white plant, when Mendel did it, he got the F1 generation, the first generation first filial generation, and he saw that all the offsprings of this cross were all violet flowering plants. He crossed a violet flowering plant with a white flowering plant, and their offsprings, all of them, none of them, they got the white flowers. All of them got violet flowers. What could be the reason? Last class I told you that the factors for violet flowers are dominant. When the violet flowers are dominant, the offspring will receive the dominant factor, and the dominant factor has always to express itself. So it is expressing itself in the F1 generation, and it is not allowing the white factor to express itself. And the factor that cannot express itself is known as the recessive factor. So this combination, where you have a hybrid combination of genotype, here only the dominant factor will express itself, and this is law of dominance. But we need to show that the recessive factor is present in this plant. It is not lost. How will you show it? By self-crossing it. When you self-cross this plant, what will you see? The F2 generation, 3 out of 4 are showing violet flowers. And then there are few plants, 1 out of every 4 plants that are producing white flowers. From where did the white flower come? In this generation, the parent of F2 generation did not have white flowers. This generation, this population did not have white flower at all. They only have violet flowers. And when violet flowers we cross with each other, how are we getting a white flower plant? This white flower is coming due to the presence of the recessive factor in the F1 generation. The recessive factor is present, but it is not expressing itself. It will express itself in the next generation only when both the factors are recessive. Even if one factor is recessive, it can't express itself because the dominant factor will not allow it to do that. So in the F2 generation, the phenotypes that we are getting is 3 violet plants is to 1 white plant. So here also we took a monohybrid cross, and in this monohybrid cross also we get the same ratio 3:1. Now just for a reminder, if we do not take the parents with pure genotypes, see here white flower will express itself only when both of the factors are recessive factors. But violet can be produced by a hybrid condition also. Okay, so if Mendel had taken this type of genotype, what would be the F1 generation? What would be the combination in F1 generation? See, these plants will always produce white factors. They have no other factors. There, what they will give the next generation is only small w. That is the factors for white. Whereas here, this plant can give the next generation either factors for violet or factors for white, because they have both the factors. So they have an option. They can give the next generation either capital or W or both, whereas this plant can produce only small w, the factors for white flowers. So if these fuse, so you will get capital W and a small w. Because the dominant is present, the offsprings will be violet. And if this crosses with this, small w, no dominant factor, so here the flowers will be white. So if Mendel had taken a hybrid violet plant instead of taking a pure violet plant, if he had taken a hybrid violet plant, what would be the combination in the F1 generation? This is the F1 generation. The F1 generation would be 50-50%. 50% of the plants would produce violet flowers, whereas 50% would produce white flowers. So it is very important. The parent genotype, what is the parent genotype is very important, especially the parent genotype of the dominant parent. Violet is dominant factor, so this will be the dominant characteristic, dominant factor. The dominant factor, the dominant character can be produced by pure factors also and by hybrid factors also. So this will be produced only by one genotype. You have no other combination for this. But the dominant character has two genotypes. Either it can be produced by pure factors, both the same, capital W, or a hybrid factor, capital W and small w. So if we had both capital W, the F1 generation would be all violet. We saw in the previous cross. And if the dominant character is a hybrid genotype, you will get 50-50%. There is one question. The first question of your exercise talks about the same cross that we are talking right now. Your first question of your exercise. This understanding will help you solve that question. So this is the representation of that first question I was talking about. Now here, this is not a monohybrid cross. Monohybrid, I told you, was when we are studying only single character. Here we are studying two characters together. Tall also the height of the plant, and violet means the flower color. Here also height and the flower color. We are studying two crosses, two characters, remember. So this cross will be called a dihybrid cross. I will get into it in detail. So this is a dihybrid cross that we are talking about, but its roots lie in what we just studied. Here see, a tall plant bearing violet flowers was crossed with a short plant bearing white flowers. Now, a short plant bearing white flowers, shortness is a recessive character. Recessive characters are coded only by recessive factors, small t, small t. Even if there was one capital T, this would not be short. So obviously, if it is short, it will have small t, small t. Same with white flower color is also a recessive character. So if the flowers are white, that means the factors for it is surely small t, small t. So this plant, this parent plant that we are talking about, we know the genotype. Two factors for shortness, both are recessive. Two factors for white flowers, which are also recessive. So this plant, we are sure about the genotype. But this plant, it is tall, which is a dominant character. It has violet flowers, which is also a dominant character. So that means this plant genotype can be anything of these four that I have written down here. I have written four characters here. All the four genotypes will code for a tall and violet plant. See, capital T, plant will be tall. Capital W, plant will produce violet flowers surely. Capital T, pure for tallness. But capital W and small w, it is a hybrid for violet flower colors. But since capital W is there, it will produce violet flowers. Same way here. Capital T and a small t. Capital T is present, which is a dominant factor, so plant will be tall. Capital W is present, plant will be violet. Capital T and small t, that means plant will be tall because capital T is present, and capital W is present, that means plant will be violet. That means this character, this combination of plant that we have taken, a tall plant with violet flowers, can be out of one of the four will be the genotype of the parent. So we have to investigate what is the genotype of this parent. This parent's genotype we already know by default. The book in the question is asking you what is the genotype of this parent out of these four possible genotypes. What is the specific genotype of this parent? And how to find that out? By looking into the F1 generation. Now we have been given the characters of the F1 generation in the question. The F1 generation is tall and violet. All of them are violet. The question says that all the plants are violet. So tall and violet also are there, short and violet also are there. That means violet is present in all the offsprings. All the offsprings, 100% all offsprings are showing violet flowers. In the previous cross I told you, how can the F1 generation produce all violet flowers? Only if the factors for violet is pure factors. Both of them are capital W. Only then all the F1 generation can produce 100% violet flowers. So here this combination for violet factors, this combination will produce violet flowers. This combination can't. I just showed you, if there is a hybrid combination of genotype, 50% will be violet, 50% will be white. But here we are talking both, all the offsprings are violet. That means these factors are not possible. So two of the four factors are already gone. Understood? So violet flowers, since all the plants, all the F1 plants have violet flowers, that means the parent will have both the dominant factors for violet. So that means we are left with either this is the plant or this is the plant. Okay, so let us see the second character in the F1 generation. Violet is already gone, so since both of them have violet, it is a dominant. Both the factors are dominant. Now here, half of the plants, that means 50% of the plants are tall, 50% are dwarf. That means the factors for height of the plant or tallness of a plant is not pure. Both of them are not capital T, because if it was capital T, again 100% of the plants would be tall. But here 100% plants are not tall. Half of them are tall, half of them are short. So short plants come from small t, not from capital T. So that means this genotype is not possible. If this genotype was possible, all my plants would be tall and violet, because both the characters are pure form. Capital T, that means all the plants will be tall. Capital W means all the plants will be violet. Since all the plants are violet, we are saying it is capital W, but all the plants are not tall. That means even this genotype is not possible. Half of them are tall because they inherited the capital T. Half of them are short because they inherited the small t, that's why they are short. So we are left with only one genotype. That means our parent, the dominant parent, had the genotype capital T, small t, capital W. So this is the answer for your question, and this is how we solve the questions like these.